Music, one of life's greatest pleasures, has tremendous power. The power to bring a tear to the eye or quiet a racing mind. Music also has the power to heal and has been used through the ages to treat depression, create energy, induce sleep, relieve chronic pain, reduce stress, and even cure diseases. And now, musician and author Michael Tyrrell has created Whole Tones, the healing frequency music projects. These frequencies were studied in the music of King David and believed to have astounding healing effects. Now you can benefit from this revitalized ancient healing music therapy simply by listening daily to this music in the comfort of your own home, car, or office. Reward yourself with the gift of healing and transformation. Don't miss this opportunity to get an absolutely free sample of this music so that you can begin benefiting right away. Just visit WholeTonesLive.com and get a free sample of these soothing, relaxing, revitalizing musical tones. Visit WholeTonesLive.com today for your free sample. That's WHOLETONES Live.com. WholeTonesLive.com.
Greetings and salutations. This is the 2015 Marching Podcast presents the 2015 Director Series Podcast featuring Dr. Kevin O. Davenport, sponsored by Block Band Music and Publishing. Now, without further ado, Director Series Podcast, we can now take the field. Welcome and thank you guys for listening tonight. Today is August 30th, 2015. 5 o'clock on the West Coast. 5 o'clock on the West Coast and 8 o'clock on the East Coast. We appreciate all those listening live and listening in podcast form, whether through iTunes, Facebook, Twitter, wherever you are on the interwebs tonight. We appreciate you listening, and thank you for listening. At the end of the broadcast, if you decide you like the show, then we appreciate a donation to the network, if you feel so in your heart, of course. Just simply go to themarchingpodcast.com and click on the donate button and help improve the show and help build our scholarship fund. Okay? Thank you very much for all those who are tuned in. I will bring in our outstanding experts here in a second. Again, go check out themarchingpodcast.com and click on the donate button to help improve the show and help build our scholarship fund. Okay, let me go ahead and bring in our resident expert tonight, Dr. Kevin O. Davenport. Here we go. How are you doing this evening, sir?
I'm fine, sir. Blessed as usual. Good to be back with you again this week.
All right, man. I'm really glad for you to be with us tonight. And also the owner and founder of Block Band Music and Publishing. Rashad has so many titles. I mean, men's choir, men's chorus, recovering from concerts because he travels, he's here, he's there. The man, the myth, the legend, Rashad Waters. What's going on tonight, Rashad?
What's happening, brother? Everything is fantastic, man. Although I didn't have to travel far, I just went to the D-Pack, check out the Temptation, and the Four Tops, and that was probably about 15 minutes from my house. So finally, I had to just be cool.
That's cool. I heard that, man. Well, we're really glad to have you guys on. Always good to have you guys on, have outstanding conversations. And we're really, really happy to have you with us tonight. So thanks for listening to all you at home. Again, our goal is to enhance our community through education, music, and business, and to show the world the faces of the talented, intelligent individuals who are working to make this a better place. Again, thanks for listening. We'll dive right into it because everyone knows the format, everyone knows why we're here. You guys can check out well, I do have a little housekeeping. This will be the last installment for 2015, so check us out again with more information. Check out our blog, the4.marchingpodcast.com, for more updates in the future about our director series and all the programming we have here on the Marching Podcast Network. National Signing Day show for marching bands, which is around our springtime, around the NFL draft area. That's our National Signing Day show. And, of course, the Chopping It Up show, which will be coming to the end of our 2015 season in September. We got a couple more interviews to put out there for you guys. Listen for those for the next couple Tuesdays here. And, again, our flagship series, the 90 Degree Show, featuring also Rashad. Will be breaking down all of the bands that we can and the bands, the interesting battles from the weekend, and definitely invite you, the listener, to call in and tell us what's going on. We will be looking for more correspondence this year, and of course, as we start to build our empire, we'll definitely be looking for more paid positions where people could actually go to the games and let us know the feel based on their personal experience and them actually being there. We have definitely started to listen to more and more of our listeners, and the feedback of that, we need more people actually telling us who was at the game versus what Rashad and I can see through YouTube. All right? We just still want to do that to make sure we highlight all those HBCU videographers out there working hard to put our product out there on the web and out there in a good visible format. We want to definitely make sure we give them props and enough feedback and a lot of publications, publicity, if you will, for them. But also as well, we want to make sure that we have someone there on the grounds to be like, man, they was wilding out and they was fighting and they was throwing peanuts at each other. We can't see that on YouTube. So we want to hear all of that interesting information, including all of the news. It seems like there's so much news in 2015, I can't even go into so much all of it, but directors and lawyers and schools and fights and all this other stuff. And an interesting setup this year were a battle of the bands. I mean, I can't even go into it, but it's so much to talk about. Let's get into our first commercial break. I will mute the guys here just so we can get, again, all the housekeeping out the way, and we will talk fundraising tonight. In our first segment, we will talk fundraising, and, again, based on our expertise, check out the book, Practical Methods for Building the Better High School Marching Band. Make sure you guys check out that book there by Dr. Davenport. If you check out our blog, we have a link to that book. You can click on that link. It takes you straight there to Amazon, and you can buy that copy and also get that signed there from Dr. Davenport as well. So let's make sure we support each other, again, giving us some tips that will make fundraising easier for us to deal with. We'll take another commercial break, and we'll come back, and we'll talk about the various levels of fundraising that will keep us covered throughout the year, and handling the money as well. In our second segment, we'll again break for another commercial break, and our last bank, we'll give you guys a time for feedback, time to answer questions, maybe some questions that some of you had last week. I know it was a couple of directors that called in. We would like for you to call back again to fit in at any time. If you even have questions from last year, please do so in that last hour. That is for you, and we will definitely bounce things off of each other and toggle things. All right? I think I am through with the housekeeping. Let's get on to paying the bills and come back with fundraising here on the 2015 Director Series podcast, brought to you by Block Band Music and Publishing, Blog Talk Radio, and themarchingpodcast.com. Thanks again for listening.
Hey, this is Kenny, and you're listening to the Marching Podcast. Hi, this is Nessa. You're listening to the Marching Podcast.
Having an anniversary party, birthday party, or better yet, you're about to marry that special someone? Liquid Effects Photography is the perfect choice to immortalize all your most special moments. With 10 years of dependable professional service that can deliver from the conventional to the best in cutting-edge technology and creativity. Come experience the uniqueness of Liquid Effects photography. We serve the entire upper Midwest and will travel further upon request. Come check us out at liquideffects.com. That's LIQUIDEFFEX.com. Or call us at 773-454-5556. That's 773-454-5556.
From photo shoots to graduation pictures, from probates to band footage, from pageants to yard shows, there's only one team you can count on, the Edge1 Productions. Visit theedge1.com and trust me, you won't be disappointed.
Band directors, have you ever found yourselves in this situation? Showtime is quickly approaching. Your budget is quickly disappearing. Your music choices are narrowing. The equipment condition is wearing and your stress level is mounting. Stop what you're doing and contact Block Band Music and find out how we've got you. Check www.blockbandmusic.com, providing music, equipment, gear, and accessories to show style, core style, and traditional bands worldwide.
What if there was a Facebook for bands? Wait a minute, there is. Bandhead.org. Bandhead.org is a social network for HBCU show bands. You can create your own profile and post videos, photos, and comments on Bandhead.org. Need somewhere to post events, audition schedules, job postings? Check out Bandhead.org. Are you recruiting for talent? Go to Bandhead.org. Bandhead.org, a social network for bands.
Chopping It Up is a podcast of one-on-one interviews with positive role models that have a connection through music and or education. Chopping It Up is all about inspiring our youth for a great future and providing a roadmap on how to get there. We also chop it up to give insight to anyone looking for information or hope in their endeavors. Chop it up with us on Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern at blogtalkradio.com/marchingpodcast. Chopping It Up, changing the world through positive interaction. What up, bandheads? Are you looking for a talk show about HBCU marching bands? Well, look no further than the 90 Degree Show, brought to you by the Marching Podcast. Every Sunday during the football season at 8 p.m. Eastern, we recap the most intriguing battles of the weekend and give you, the listener, an opportunity to voice your opinion on the battle by calling into the show and talking with our panelists. Are you ready for the only interactive show in the world for HBCU marching bands? Then check us out Sundays at 8 p.m. Eastern at blogtalkradio.com/marchingpodcast. The 90 Degree Show, the interactive HBCU band podcast show.
All right, welcome. Thanks for tuning in. We're listening, coming back with the sounds of Talladega College. It's marching season for everyone that does not know or might not be on this planet. There was a huge battle of the bands yesterday. The good old Queen City had a lot of good talent, a lot of good schools there. And those videos are now live on the internet. Yes, YouTube has struck again. All of our videographers, shout out to Otis. I saw some of his footage, Otis Jefferson. I saw some of his footage. But the marching season is back as I bring in Dr. Davenport and Rashard. to the broadcast. Really excited about all of this happening, but now we are going to talk tonight. Rashad, I know, did you hear anything about the Battle of the Bands that went on yesterday?
I just heard. I mean, I've just seen a lot of Facebook comments, but I haven't really had a chance to really study and see what's going on there.
Right. Me either.
There were actually two Battle of the Bands yesterday because there was one in South Carolina as well, and I know that at least North Carolina A&T was at both of them, and there may have been more than one band that did that.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's what's up. I want to make an amendment to something we said earlier. Rashad let me know something. We prefer getting the book through Block Band Music and Publishing. The signed copy from Dr. Davenport is not from Amazon, but we prefer get it through Block Band Music and Publishing. So I will change that there on the blog so you guys can click on that, and it will open up your email to email Block Band Music and Publishing. Yes, hit me up, and you get the signed copy. So we prefer it that way. Sorry for the amendment there. So, again, getting into our 2015 series here, Part 2, fundraising. Dr. Davenport, I will give you the floor, sir.
All right. First of all, good evening, all listeners out there. We're going to talk about a subject tonight that probably most of us would rather not deal with, and it's the subject of fundraising. Let me start by asking you a couple of questions. Number one, do you have a big item or a big trip that you want to go on and you're trying to figure out how you're going to raise money to make the trip, how you're going to get it accomplished? Well, I hope you have a plan in place for that, and I hope you're not just putting your plan in place coming off of our conversation last week. But the band program, one of the things that can be the most tedious and most frustrating is fundraising. Unfortunately, in 2015, very few programs are funded to the point where they don't have to fundraise. But fundraising, if handled properly, can be an item that puts your job. If you don't handle it properly, it can be an item that puts your job in jeopardy. So we need to know how to do it in a way that doesn't totally stress out the band director, but still raises the funds that we need. Now, what I would like to do is just go through, first of all, some tips on how to make the fundraising a little less stressful and things you have to consider as you go into doing fundraising. Number one, of course, like we talked about all last week, is planning. You should schedule all your fundraisers that you intend to do in a year at the beginning of the year, or really before the year starts. So you have proper time to set up your fundraising programs, so you have time to spread them out. You want to spread out your fundraisers so you don't burn out the community or your students to have to go out and fundraise. One thing I discovered is if you continue to fundraise over and over again with no stop, your profit margins go further and further down because students are selling less and less and people are buying less and less. You don't want to get the reputation that every 2 weeks you're asking for more money out of the community, even if you're selling things. So you want to plan to spread them out and have them spaced so there's time in between, time to recover, not to mention time to concentrate on the other things that we need to do through the band season. Number two is you... What was that?
I said like a band.
Absolutely. Number two is you want to fundraise with particular goals. If you don't fundraise for specific goals, you're going to have trouble really making money that way as well. Who wants to go out and continue to ask people for money if they don't know what they're raising money for? On the other side of that, you'll find out if you have particular items that you can let people know that you're trying to raise money for, they'll be more willing to buy things or participate in your fundraisers when they know you have a particular objective that you're trying to reach. So make sure that you make your fundraisers specific. Number three, whenever possible, allow your band parents organization to handle, set up, and run your fundraisers. Now, of course, that's going to take making sure that you have a good band parents organization in place. Now, I know some people use the words band boosters, I use the word band parents because in our programs, the adults that we want fully active are the parents. The more parents you have active in your band parents organization, the more committed your students will be also. Plus, you can hold parents more accountable than boosters in general, where people don't have attached to the school or the students in the band. Once you get a good, solid band parents organization up and running, you want to let them do your fundraising for you and take that stress off of the band director's head. Lord knows we have enough to think about without having to think about setting up, running, and collecting monies. Yeah, I know what I'm talking about out there. And I'm sure somebody's wiping their forehead now from the sweat. Nope.
Hey,
go ahead.
Dr. Davenport, I was going to say that in your book you actually have an entire chapter talking about that, forming a band parents organization. It's actually a whole chapter committed to that.
And if you don't mind, I want to mention something out of that chapter. You have to be careful how you set up an organization. There's actually a band parents constitution in that chapter that keeps the band director in charge and in control of that organization. So if you're not careful, that organization can get away from you and start working against you instead of for you. But that's a whole nother conversation. But that leads into number 4. Whenever possible, don't handle the money yourself. A lot of band directors get taken down by misallocation of funds, particularly from dealing with fundraisers and having to take up cash. So that's the other reason you want to get a good band parents organization in place, so you don't have to touch the money. So we want to consider that, especially when you get into some heavy fundraisers where you're raising thousands of dollars at a time. You don't want that headache on your head if you can avoid it. Number 5, and please remember this, don't do fundraisers where you have to pay for the thing before people order. Let me say that again. Don't do fundraisers where you have to put money up front in order to make money. Why? 9 times out of 10, you end up losing money. You know, it reminds me of an old cartoon, Funky Winkerbean, and Mr. Dingle. If you remember that, Mr. Dingle always had a garage full of candy. Why would he have a garage full of candy? Because he had to pay for the candy up front. That's why he was always trying to push candy. Nowadays, you do not have to buy product up front. There are some very good fundraisers out there that will allow you to take orders and then pay for the orders and have them delivered. And it works well, and once your community knows that you are trustworthy, more and more people will buy that way. Number 6, don't do fundraisers that sell things that break school policies. If your school has a policy about eating gum and candy in school, why would you sell it in school? You have to be careful of that. Know what the policies are. Some school systems have a policy against doing raffles. Well, you need to check that. If they have a policy against doing raffles, then don't try to sell raffle tickets. You need to know. Once again, we're trying to keep the stress level down. We don't want to be called on the carpet for doing something that breaks school policy. So check into your school policy and find out what they will and won't allow you to do. Next, know your clientele. You've got to know the community that you're serving in. You got to know their likes and their dislikes. And it may take doing a fundraiser once to find out that the community really doesn't like what you're selling. So we have to be careful of what we're selling, and we have to be knowledgeable of who we're selling to. Because the more they like what you're selling, the easier it is to fundraise. Let me give you an example. One of our big fundraisers was always selling fruit, citrus fruit. We would sell it the week before Thanksgiving. Well, most people buy fruit the weeks before Thanksgiving. So we knew that it would be a product that most people were going to get anyway. And the timing of it was such that they just got it from us instead of going to the store and getting it, which allowed us to make a lot more money because every year they came looking for us to sell the fruit. We didn't have to go out looking for them because it became an annual thing.
Or start selling Christmas trees.
Oh, yeah. Christmas wreaths work real well.
Right.
They're less expensive. They're less expensive than dealing with trees, but there are companies that will allow you to sell Christmas wreaths. And you take orders, and they deliver them 2-3 weeks before Christmas. So they're fresh right around Christmas time. Once again, what does that take? It takes planning. But it's a big money maker because the money does not have to be paid up front. You pay as you order.
Or I have them like seasonal. I already think like maybe you can have them like have it for every season. I guess whenever the date of your particular fundraiser is, like you said, in your yearly planning, or you're going to have those input days, if you will. I guess if it's around Easter, then have some type of Easter thing, or around Christmas thing. I guess like you say, that would, if you know that people are going to be buying that stuff anyway, then I guess put it out there so they don't have to go to the store, I guess.
Yeah, well, another thing that you want to do is you want to do fundraisers at a time of the year where your band is very much out there in the public. We always did a fundraiser during football season because then at our home games it was announced over the intercom that the band is right after halftime. Notice that's timing and placement. Right after halftime it was announced the band is selling such and such and such and such for such and such. You can buy it here in the stadium before you leave. See? So now people are already at the game. They're excited about what you did on the field. They're ready to support you. Get them before they ever leave the stadium. But once again, we're talking about planning. You need to think about when are you most active, when are you most visible to the community, and set up your fundraisers so that you can take full advantage of that. All right. The next thing is you want to get your students motivated to sell. Sometimes it can be a big headache trying to get students to sell things. Well, here's a way that you can motivate them to sell. Set your fundraiser up so that a percentage of the profit that they make goes towards something that directly benefits them. For instance, if you charge a band fee, what if you did a fundraiser early in the year that a percentage of the profits from the fundraiser went to help pay their band fee? Okay? Or if you're going to take a trip, you do a fundraiser early in the year where a percentage of your profits goes towards paying for the individual's trip. See, these things give them a reason or can give them the opportunity to see that something's going to come out of it that benefits them directly. Yeah, we can say that everything in the band benefits the students directly, but not if you're trying to buy drums. Tuba player's not really worried about you buying drums. But if the tuba player knows that, okay, a percentage of this is going to go to pay for my fall trip, then he's motivated to go out and sell because he knows some of that money is going directly to something that he's going to benefit from. Okay,
that is something that I had a question about there about Davenport, because I did run into that type of stuff myself, where different sections might need particular things. Like you said, we might need percussion equipment, or the auxiliary section might need, this particular thing. So I guess you would pull that particular section out in order to have them do their own fundraising?
No, once again, I would have the whole band do the fundraiser. But I would let them know, okay, yeah, we're raising money for new drums or whatever, but also a portion of what you raise individually is going to go towards your spring trip. So let's say if I tell them that 15% of the profit that they bring in will go towards, well, let's put a name out there. Rashad's in my band. He plays trombone. Decent trombone player. And Rashad knows that the fall trip's going to cost him $400. Now, either he's going to pay that out of his pocket or he can pay it through participating in the fundraising. Well, I let him know up front that 20% of the profit that he makes from his orders will go to help him paying off his trip. He has the motivation to go sell now. Because he's trying to get money to help pay for his trip, right?
So that
but
would
at the same time, say it again?
Would that be being 80% going towards the drums and stuff?
Absolutely.
Okay.
But see, what he's going to concentrate on is the 20% that's going towards his trip.
Mm-hmm.
It makes it personal to him. He has a reason to go out and sell because he's going to benefit directly from the fundraising. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
So that starts to erase that thing of, oh, well, they just raising money for the flag section, so I'm not going to go sell anything. Well, then you're going to have to come out your pocket to pay for the other stuff that you have to do. But this gives you an opportunity. And I'd be interested to know that a lot of bands still charge membership fee. Because I can tell you, I saw some bands that charge as much as $350 band membership fee.
I think so because my sister lives in Dallas, and, you know, they're all football crazy down there. So some of the bands, you know, are trying to, you know, get some of that fame as well. And I think that, you know, I think she pays a good little bit just for membership fees. And then because I think the band director guarantees every year that they're going to do so much traveling. So right. Up front, maybe like you say, they're using those fees to maybe start to pay for some of those things.
Absolutely. Well, you know, it pays for uniform, upkeep. The band membership fee can pay for a whole lot of things. But your sister would be a lot more motivated to be involved in a fundraiser if she knew a percentage of that fundraiser is going to go towards paying that membership fee. You see what I'm saying? It would motivate her to get involved.
Do you think that 20% is a good number to motivate your kids? I mean, as a student, I wouldn't necessarily think one way or the other, but as a parent, I might think, wow, 20%. But a lot of my money is going someplace else.
Right, but what happens there, and I just kind of threw that 20% number out there.
Okay.
You can adjust that number anywhere you want to, but the bottom line as a parent, okay, I can either pay the $350 membership fee out my pocket, or I can get busy and my student can get busy, and we can go out and sell this fundraiser to make sure that the 20 or 25% is $350. Then nothing came out of my pocket. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But it motivates them to go get to work. Because at least they have an opportunity now to raise money to cover something personally. And that's the point. Whatever level you want to set it at in order to motivate them, that is not dependent on your band. Okay.
I've seen that too. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rashad.
I know that I don't want to get off topic, so but I just want to put this out there so that when we get there, the question is already ready. You know, dealing with different communities of parents. You know, we see that there are some communities where you say, hey, let's raise money for the band, and money's flying in. And other places is like the community of that particular area is not involved as much as in supporting their kids. And so therefore, if it's a much more difficult thing, you know, you say, hey, well, you're going to have to pay $400 to go on this trip, and still nothing happens. So I don't want to necessarily change the topic now, but I want to lay that out there so that we don't forget it before we leave this topic.
Well, one part of that is going back to knowing your clientele.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if you know that the community is not going to support fundraisers as much as you like them to, and you know your students can't afford $350 for band membership fees, guess what you don't charge? Don't charge $350. Right. Don't kill yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So that's a matter of knowing your community, knowing your clientele, knowing your students, knowing their parents. What kind of community are you in? It all goes back to knowing that. That takes research. That takes experience as well. Okay?
Okay.
I think I was going to say right quick that that made me think of when you see parents taking, like, they take their candy bars to their job, or I've even seen people at my job send out a mass email and be like, my son Denham is, going to the Rockies and blah, 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 So, I guess you can do that, too. You don't necessarily have to tell the folks there at your job you paying off the band fees. But, I think all parents do that anyway, where they start helping out their kids on the side. But it would benefit, like you said, the parents as well. I think I just wanted to just reiterate what you were just saying so far. You definitely are reaching out to the parents. And you definitely got that DMV accent going on with you, Dr. D, when you say parents. When you say parents, the parent, yeah. So, but having those parents involved definitely seems key to this fundraising here we're talking about so far.
Absolutely. And if you're really trying to build a band program, you need the parents as active as you can in all aspects of the program. Mm-hmm. That's when it's truly going to grow. But that's, if I can get off into that, parents can be your biggest recruiters too. But I won't deal with that right now. Number 9, and I think a lot of people don't know this, negotiate your profit margin. Let me give you an example. One of my biggest fundraisers, as I said, was fruit sales, and it was an annual sale. After about 2 or 3 years in of doing it, we were clearing $10,000 to $12,000 every time we did it. I started looking at all the citrus companies. There's several citrus companies out there that you can buy fruit from. But I started doing research in the profit margins of other companies. And then I went to Midwest Bank and Orchestra Clinic that year and met with the president of the company that I had been working with. And at the time, he was giving me 35%, which is not bad. But in sitting down and talking, I said, look, I'm looking at, Company B here, and they're willing to give me 40%. So you want to keep my business, or can you raise my profit margin? And he did raise it to 45%. Because they would rather lose some profit than lose the business altogether. So we don't always have to think that we're stuck at whatever, profit percentage they say they're going to give us. Once you become a steady customer, then you negotiate your profit margins. So we really need to know that we have that ability. You have that power, because those companies are depending on you for repeat business to keep their business going. Okay?
So, Dr. Davenport, when you say profit margin, what exactly do you mean in your relationship with the company?
Well, let's say that for a box of oranges, they want me to sell them for $15. Okay?
Okay.
Well, they can say that if I sell them for $15, I'm going to get $3 per box.
Oh, okay.
For my profit. Okay? Which means they're making $12 per box.
Okay.
But I can renegotiate that so that I'm making $5 a box. So I'm putting a lot more money into my band program simply by changing that how much profit I'm making per unit. You get what I'm saying?
Definitely.
And you can negotiate and move that. And you need to know that is possible. It can be done. All right. So any of these you wanted me to go back over, Joseph, any of the points we just made?
Yeah, I guess we could, before we go into the next segment, but I definitely myself, and I was going to get to Rashad, I myself, like I say, I definitely seeing the parental involvement, if you will. And something else that jumped out at me, too, I think was the seasonal fundraisers. I think that's really cool too, because you take advantage of what's going on at the time, and like you said, people are going to be looking for Christmas ornaments for the tree, or like you said, wreaths or something like that, and definitely you're going to be like, hey, go ahead and put one of these on your tree. I definitely can see that. I definitely see people taking advantage, but again, having some type of planning, I guess, involved because you would have to have stuff ordered for seasonal stuff since they're not going to be available like 12 months a year. You know what I mean?
Right. And the other thing is you want to plan it far enough in advance because a company may have a certain amount and other bands may be trying to sell the same thing, which means you might lose the date that you can do it because they can't deliver the product. For instance, if you sell fruit, citrus fruit, for instance, you can pick your date if you sell a complete tractor trailer full of fruit. But if you can only sell a quarter of a trailer full of fruit, they give you a window of days where they can deliver. So if they give me a window of days, I cannot tell the community, your fruit will be here on such and such a date when I go to sell it, okay? Mm-hmm. But if I'm selling a full tractor trailer, I can say, your fruit will be here the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Think about that. If I can guarantee that your stuff will be delivered the day before Thanksgiving, your citrus fruit, you're going to be willing to buy it because that's exactly when you need it. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a matter of scheduling. It's a matter of getting everybody involved so you can get a certain volume, which gives you more negotiating room. And the bigger it gets, you once again, you have to know your community. In some places, Easter baskets sell well. In other places, Easter baskets might not sell well. But you have to know your community. And sometimes that might take a year or two to really get to know them that well, but you need to do that kind of research. And while I'm there, let me say this. I've always been wanting to stay away from nickel and dime fundraisers. Let me give you an example. How much profit would you make selling a bag of M&Ms? Okay,
42 cents.
Okay, if you're making 42 cents, how many are you going to have to sell in order to make $5,000? How many are you going to have to sell in order to make $5,000?
About 40,000. About 40,000.
You see what I'm saying? Plus, M&M's going to make you pay up front. Mm-hmm. That's the other thing. So I'm not going to sell nickel and dime items and then have to sell it all year just to make a difference. Mm-hmm. Set up 2 or 3 really strong fundraisers. You plan in advance for them. You advertise in the market to sell before it happens, and then you go all out to do those fundraisers. That reaches back to several of the points I made. Number one, if I'm just doing 2 or 3 a year, I'm not burning the community out and burning my students out by having them constantly sell stuff all the time. Number 2, I don't want to sell a profit that they're going to eat up. For example,
Hold on, Dr. Davenport. Your voice changed. Did you go on the speakerphone? Yeah.
No, I'm still there.
Okay, good. Right. Okay, yeah, you went back. Yeah, your voice changed and it's kind of sounding kind of echoey. But I think you're okay now.
Okay.
Just taking a little bit. Dr. Davenport.
I would not sell candy and M&Ms because how much of that are my students going to eat up themselves?
I was just thinking that too. Some of these kids gonna blow it in their horn eventually, or have some in the cakes or something.
In selling something like that, eventually you have some kid that comes back that you gave everybody 25 packs to go sell. Some kids will come back and say, "I lost the 25 pack,"
or it's stolen or whatever.
Well, he lost them in his stomach. See what I'm saying? So you stay away from nickel and dime stuff like that. That really, if you look long distance, that's not where you're making a profit, and you're not. It's going to be very hard to bring in the kind of money that you need to. How many packs of M&Ms would you need to sell to buy one 20K sousaphone? Now, if you don't know, a 20K sousaphone costs almost $10,000 now.
But just one?
One, yes.
One tuba.
You can spend $10,000 on one tuba.
I mean, that's a lot of diabetes right there.
Oh, man.
You got to get the whole community diabetes to get a tuba.
I'm serious, right?
And
so
once
maybe,
again, how much money do you have to put out front to buy this stuff to hope that you sell it?
Rashad, I mean, you actually make I'm laughing at you, man, but you make maybe it's another something about maybe some type of health conscious or having some type of idea about what you're selling. Like, is this going to be beneficial? Is this good? You know, maybe, you know, like you said, that's definitely nickel and dime, and then the whole health thing, the sugar content, maybe that's not good for the kids.
Is it worth the energy that has to be put out by you and your band to sell it? Think about that. Is it worth the time, the trouble? Okay, you have to go to, let's say that you got 25 backpacks of M&Ms that you want to go out and sell, and let's say you make $40 cents a pack, which is high on candy. Well, how much money is 25 packs going to bring you in? Versus if I have a kid that can go out and sell one box of fruit at $15, and I'm going to make $4 a box, the profit margins are much higher. I'm going to make a lot more money. Like I said, we got to the point where we were probably making $14,000 to $18,000 a year on citrus sales.
You still there? You still there back to that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we heard the tubas playing.
The music come in.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. That's just the transition. You okay?
Okay.
You can finish it, though.
But, you know, the point is we need to think through how we can fundraise smarter and not have to work ourselves to death in the process and still make the kind of money we need to bring in. And that's the important part with that.
Joe, we heard about $100,000 worth of tubas playing just then. So we just...
Probably a lot more than that.
Yeah, a lot more than that.
About 42 million cases of M&Ms too. About a whole lot. Something ridiculous. But yeah, that actually really is. I always got some really good connecting points. I think that's what I really like about the book, or like about what you're doing, Dr. Davenport. You could use them in a couple of different ways. You can go in a couple of different alleys with a lot of these points. And they're reflective. So, again, listening to all of these actually helps build the better high school marching band director. So, again, really appreciate you guys having you guys on the show. And shout out to Block Band and Music and Publishing for putting this into existence. We'll go here into our second commercial break, and we'll be back here to talk about the next part of our show. The various levels of fundraising and handling the money. Dr. D, you already kind of got into that a little bit, of like just having that part just taken care of, just away from you, is handling that money. So we'll get more into that here in our second block. I'm going to mute you guys. Listen to the 2015 Director Series Podcast, Part 2 on fundraising. We'll be back after these sponsors' messages.
Band directors, have you ever found yourselves in this situation? Showtime is quickly approaching. Your budget is quickly disappearing. Your music choices are narrowing. The equipment condition is wearing and your stress level is mounting. Stop what you're doing and contact Block Band Music and find out how we've got you. Check www.blockbandmusic.com, providing music, equipment, gear, and accessories to show style, core style, and traditional bands worldwide.
What if there was a Facebook for bands? Wait a minute, there is. Bandhead.org. Bandhead.org is a social network for HBCU show bands. You can create your own profile and post videos, photos, and comments on Bandhead.org. Need somewhere to post events, audition schedules, job postings? Check out Bandhead.org. Are you recruiting for talent? Go to bandhead.org. Bandhead.org, a social network for bands.
What up, bandheads? Are you looking for a talk show about HBCU marching bands? Well, look no further than the 90-Degree Show, brought to you by the Marching Podcast. Every Sunday during the football season at 8 p.m. Eastern, we recap the most intriguing battles of the weekend and give you, the listener, an opportunity to voice your opinion on the battle by calling into the show and talking with our panelists. Are you ready for the only interactive show in the world for HBCU marching bands? Then check us out Sundays at 8 p.m. Eastern at blogtalkradio.com/marchingpodcast. The 90-Degree Show, the interactive HBCU band podcast show.
Welcome back. You're back here now with Part B of the 2015 Director Series podcast, brought to you by the Marching Podcast, Blog Talk Radio, and Block Band Music and Publishing. We are listening to the North Carolina A&T Blue and Gold Marching Machine. Shout out to them, bringing us back from the commercial break. One of their tremendous halftime shows, something they were doing, of course, mixing stuff around with all that flair. You know how they do. We are again back. I will unmute the guy's microphone. In our next segment here, we invite you to call in and get your feedback or any questions that you may have from anything from last year and the 4 topics we hit on last year or last week. When we touch base on time management, anything. We saw a couple of directors. Again, we invite those people to call back, if you will. 718-664-6025, the number you see there on your screen, and join the conversation. We definitely could talk about this all night, but importantly enough, we want to spread the wealth, spread the education, spread the knowledge, so we continue to build our craft. Okay? So, Dr. Davenport, I will give you the floor, for the second part of our conversation on fundraising.
Okay. Well, once again, we've talked about some issues that you have to think about, some tips, things that you just need to make sure that you have organized in your head. But the next thing we need to keep in mind is we're dealing with different types of fundraisers, and I would like for you to try to organize your fundraisers in your head in these various forms. First of all is the short-term fundraising. Now, short-term fundraising is anything with a one-day quick turnaround. Okay, that could be having a particular event like a competition, a concert, selling dinners, anything where you see your profits immediately. Some of the things that I've seen happen that you may not think about. And this first one depends on the administration of your school and your athletic director. The shout-out. Now, I'm sure if we've ever gone to band competitions, one of the biggest things that happen at band competitions are the shout-out. A shout-out is when you allow people to send a message to somebody in one of the bands, and they pay $1 to have that message read over the public address system. Well, let's really think about that. You're playing on people's vanity. and
for my tweet. Right, right.
I'm sending this message out to Pookie now on a great halftime show.
Yeah.
Okay? But think about that. You start bringing $1 in, that's no overhead. But that brings in money. Now, at one of the schools I worked in, we were allowed to do that at football games. So anytime there was a timeout after the halftime shows, before the game started. I had an assistant principal that was also a band parent. Of course, that helped tremendously. But we ran shout-outs the whole day. So every time a shout-out was read, that was another dollar coming in fundraising. It's quick. You make the money the same day. Fast turnaround, no overhead. Another one, quick turnaround, well, not for short term, is the patrons list. The patrons list works very well during concert season, but you can work out ways to do this during marching season, particularly if you have a band competition of your own. Patrons list allows you to go out and say for $5, anybody that gives you $5, you're going to print their name in the program. How much does ink cost to print a name? So if I'm going to have a band competition, 2 or 3 weeks before band competition, I'm going to have my students go out and start collecting patrons. Where if I charge $5 per patron, that's $5 with no overhead, $5 that I get in immediately. All of it is profit, and it can be done very quickly. Car washes in certain communities work very well. In other communities, you may not get a lot of help. You may not make a lot of money. But these are all short-term fundraisers. One day, quick turnaround.
And Dr. Davenport, I want to ask, I just want to just, when you say no overhead, that's something where it's not like a specific goal or end game. It's just so much money you're just pulling in. What do you mean?
Right. It's 100% pure profit.
Okay.
No money has to go out to make it.
Okay.
Okay. Now, with a car wash, yeah, you may have to go buy some soap, some towels, that kind of thing. But with the shout-out, with the patrons list, 100% of the money is pure profit. You're not going to make, well, I can't say that. Shout-outs, you can make several $100 in a day in shout-outs, believe it or not. But, it's going to bring some money coming in. And if you could do it at every home game, that would be great. I mean, think about how much money you can make over the course of a home game, through the season. So there are things
that you have to kind of give your announcer some guidance. I mean, I've been to a lot of competitions, and I haven't heard anybody abuse that. But at the same token, there's a lot of kids that are doing the shout-out sometimes, and so you have to be careful if somebody comes up and says something that's inappropriate or something that you call it, hey, we're the best band out here, better than all you other bands. You just kind of have to train your person to be intelligent about what they're going to do.
Absolutely. You really want an adult, a mature adult, reading the shout-outs, so they can filter what's there. Hopefully nobody will send anything inappropriate, but you got to be able to filter that out. Okay, so you make a good point there. But, if we need a couple $100 for drum heads, that might be a quick way to get it. For those short-term things. We need reeds. You can bring in enough at a single game to buy the reeds for the year if it's done properly. So those are short-term things that you can do to get some money coming in quickly. Now, the second are long-term. Long-term fundraisers deal more with things that take a lot more planning, like we talked about in the last segment. In order to do a fruit sale, let's say the fruit sale's in November, you want to start selling in September because you are collecting the money up front. You have to be able to collect the money, tally the orders, get the fruit paid for, and set your delivery date up. So it takes a lot longer period of time to accomplish and see your profit from that kind of fundraising. But generally your annual fundraisers are going to be long-term because those are the things that you're going to plan out and plan to make your most money. Now, some of the examples of fundraisers, and we talked about a few of them, fruit sales, wreath sales, selling some kind of major merchandise. Maybe you are selling, wow, I can't even imagine these days. Maybe you find something where you can get a discount on some kind of electronic device, and you sell them. Or you're selling things that are going to have the school's logo on it. Then those are things that you have to plan out, because you have to plan in the time it takes to take orders, pay the company, and get delivery. Now, a couple of other long-term events you might want to think about, maybe hosting a dinner for a great band director in your area, or for a great sports person or personality, and you're going to do a dinner honoring and celebrating that individual. So you would go out and you would find a venue and you would sell tickets, and you put this event on. Well, we know that takes some marketing in order to do that well. It takes some setting up the catering, finding a venue. So that also is a long term, but that can bring in a lot of money. One time when I was planning on buying uniforms, the alumni at my school did an event for Emory Fears. Now, I know Rashad Waters would know that name.
Right.
But they had a dinner for Mr. Fears, who is a long legend in band. He was the band director at Norfolk State for years. But he also was band director at IC Norcom before he went to Norfolk State. So the IC Norcom alumni did a dinner to honor him and gave all the profits to the band. So in one dinner, in one night, we made $12,000.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So if you pick someone that a lot of people know and a lot of people admire, they don't mind coming out to dinners like that, as long as you don't completely outrageously price it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Right.
But that's a fundraiser you can think about. That's a way to bring in money, but that's considered long term as well. Then you have your. Go ahead.
I was going to ask, would you consider going back to your short terms? Would you consider performances as a part of those short term, one day income gatherers?
Absolutely. If somebody's going to pay you to come out and open up their new business, that's short term. Mm-hmm. As long as they pay you like they promised. Now this is the one you got to be careful of, because we see a lot of that out there, and you have to be very careful of who you're dealing with.
Right.
That if they promise you they're going to pay you, you want to see the money up front. I hate to be like that, but because people will. Yeah, you come on out here, we pay you $200. Okay, you show up, and 5-6 weeks later, they still ain't send you the check.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to be paid that day that you performed, not before. Then it is short term.
Right.
Rashad, I wanted to piggyback on that. Shout out to Duncan C. Gray, was my band director at Johnson C. Smith.
C. Smith. Mm-hmm.
I actually talked about this on a Chopping It Up episode. I talked to Anthony K. Buxton, and he marched at Smith with me. But that was one of the things we talked about was, at Smith, we did a whole lot more of those fundraisers. I mean, you couldn't just pack the Sonic Boom of the South and go to like a hotel room for something because the band was too big, or right. I guess the logistics and talking to the band at a certain time, like, hey, be here at noon, it would have been too much. But at Smith, since we were so small, I remember Mr. Gray, man, we would do these little walkthroughs. We did stuff for the Hornets. We'll do like a little quick cadence. And we show time, and we'll be popping and shaking and booing. And white people go like, go crazy. and just like what Dr. Davenport was talking about, these short term, and just what you just said, Rashad, it triggered a lot of those memories. But man, sometimes we would do something for like 5 seconds and then just be out the door. Or other times, we would be in a hotel room and we play like 3 or 4 songs. I know we danced at the March of Dimes. I believe that that's a major fundraiser. We actually did a performance there at the dinner that evening. So, yeah, definitely shout out to Mr. Gray I definitely understood because we were kids. We were just running around. Hey man, we about to go to this hotel and play. Like, you know what I mean? But definitely, he was trying to raise money for the band because Smith. Let's just say it was a little bit more than a couple $100 per semester at Smith. And he didn't have so much money for scholarships, so we had to do what we had to do at the IIOS.
Well, it's interesting because those kind of performances, and I can tell you one of the greatest performances I ever did was we did down in Portsmouth. We actually did the coronation ceremony for a new nuclear submarine.
Wow.
At the opening ceremony where they were christening the submarine, we went out there and we played Anchors Away and a couple other songs, and the Navy paid for us to be there. And the kids got to tour the inside of a nuclear submarine, and it was a great experience, And sometimes, you form a smaller pep band to do that kind of thing that you can put together and really represent you well and take them out there to do those. So those are good performances that can bring in money, and they are both short-term and long-term. Let me tell you how. Let's say that I have a high school band that's well-known in my area, and IBM wants me to come and play a couple of numbers at their opening convention. So I play it, and they pay me for that. And next year, I'm going to take a long trip. Am I not going to go back to IBM and ask for a donation?
Okay.
So I've built a relationship there that not only brings money in directly, but also hopefully will bring in, a donor for later on. So it's good to do those things.
Gotcha. That's a good point about Davenport, which I don't think I necessarily would have thought about. I would have, I probably would have been hoping and praying that they asked me to do something again, but not necessarily thought about the fact that let me go back and, ask for some more money. Now,
right, work with me, right.
This is something, I know this is kind of taking us off the next point that you were going, but it's kind of dwelling on this particular topic. I see a lot of bands are starting to make use of the fact that they can make money by performing places. But how do you, as a band director, open up more opportunities like that for your band?
Well, number one, you got to have the quality of your band up to a certain point. Because, these places want a band that can come in and effectively play and people feel good about when they leave. So if you're not maturing your band and building a strong organization, you're not going to get many opportunities like that.
Okay.
Secondly, you have to, in certain areas it's easier to do than in others. If your band's in an area that has major businesses that have, conventions and meetings on a regular basis, you may get those opportunities. If you're not getting them, maybe you write a letter to those companies. Our band is available, to play at your opening ceremonies. Please contact us so we can make arrangements. Why not market yourself that way? That builds community relationships and works to bring in money. So we want both of those things to happen. Do an introductory letter. Hopefully you're getting out in the community doing parades and other performances where the community gets to see you. And that's really important to make sure that even if it's the smallest community event, that your band is putting its best face forward, because you never know what that's going to lead to next. Okay? So that's considered. I don't know if it still happens, and maybe I shouldn't even say this. The Mardi Gras parades paid bands to come. I don't know if you all were aware of this. Some of those parades would pay up to $1,000 to a band.
Hey, Dr. Davenport,
Mardi Gras parades.
You went echoey again.
Sorry, let me get in one place.
Okay.
I'm pacing while I talk.
Oh, okay. That's why I see the diff changes. Okay, all right.
Okay, how am I now?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. So, you want to find out, you need to do research to find out what places are willing to finance you coming and give you a little extra. I see in some places that some churches are now having marching bands come in to play and are paying honorariums to the bands.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Well,
That's a quick
you know what?
Quick way to make money.
I just thought about that. At my high school, shout out to my high school band director. I don't know if we actually got paid for doing those things, but I know that I went to a Lutheran high school, so we had other, Lutheran grade schools and middle schools under us, and we would sometimes, each school was part of a church. So I guess like each Lutheran church had, Emmanuel Lutheran or Our Redeemer Lutheran. Well, so then we at the high school band, we would then maybe go play the hymns sometimes at those actual churches. And I don't know if we actually got money for that, or maybe if it was how it was worked out, maybe recruitment for our band director to get kids from that school to the band. But I remember doing that as well, But it's a trip, man. It's a trip now thinking about how much really is needed to keep your band program moving, because the money's just not falling down for a new Jumbotron.
No.
You know what I mean?
No. And the thing about it, these things that we're talking about, particularly right now, serve several purposes. One, yes, is bringing in funds, but secondly, is getting us out and known in our communities, which are going to help us in the long run.
Yes, that's very important. That's awesome.
Okay. And I can tell you one story. Tennessee State did those quite often. Went out and did, the conventions and that kind of thing. And while I was in the band, we did one of those performances for IBM, and our head drum major was offered a job on the spot. What? Because they felt that he was that strong a leader to be in front of Tennessee State's band, this kind of person they wanted.
Wow,
so
nice.
You never think about those kind of connections you make. Okay. So let's get back on track here. The third type of fundraising we want to talk about is continuous. Now, I don't want to get anybody in trouble here, but at several high schools that I taught at, we also had the rights to concession stands at football games. Now, in some places, this is going to be a fight between the band parents organization and the athletic parents organization trying to get the rights to sell. But a continuous fundraiser is selling concessions at football games. Think about that. If you know that, 6-7 games a year, you're going to be able to sell concessions. That's continual money coming in. But, of course, my band parents never sold anything at halftime.
Wow.
No one with the concession stands at halftime.
Right.
But, that was a great way to constantly bring in money by sponsoring concession stands. If your athletic program is in control of concession stands, maybe get permission to ask to set up a booth to sell something at the games other than what they sell at their booths. Maybe they sell hot dogs and hamburgers and peanuts and popcorn. Now, in the South in particular, try selling fried fish at a game. It makes a lot of money. Or chicken.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I see that. Yeah, I believe that.
Or the other one, fried turkey legs, sold at high school football games.
What about Chick-fil-A, Dr. Davenport? I mean, I'm getting hungry for Chick-fil-A right now, just thinking about it. Is that profitable?
Well, how much? It could be possible, but how low is your profit margin going to be? Remember, we want to do still fundraisers that we're going to make a decent return on. How much chicken, raw chicken, and flour and grease can I go out and buy and sell the stuff myself versus paying Chick-fil-A their price and then trying to make money on top of it?
Or, Dr. Davenport, actually, you maybe perform at some Chick-fil-A's or get out in the community and make a relationship with someone at Chick-fil-A, and then maybe the profit margin is affected some way or now. You know what I mean?
Or maybe they're willing to donate a certain number of services.
Right. Yeah.
Well, if they donate, then it's 100% profit. But once again, it goes back to that point of getting out in the community and making relationships. If they've never seen you, don't know who you are, it's going to be hard for you to go in there and convince them to give you that kind of donation. Here's a really good one, continuous, and it struck me some years ago. How many bands out there that as soon as band practice is over, all the kids are trying to run to the nearest vending machine? And what are they drinking out of the vending machine? Cokes and Sprites and the stuff with a whole lot of sugar that truly they really shouldn't have after, you see what I'm saying, after practice?
Mm-hmm.
So I began selling water and Gatorade myself after practice. So now instead of them spending the money that's going into the school or where other places, they're giving the money right back to their own program, buying something that's better for them and that they would be doing, spending the money anyway. So you turn that money from your own program right back around into itself. And I think a lot of people don't think about that. Sell your own refreshments after practice. Get permission from your administration first. Because, most vending machines in schools are owned by the school, and all the money that goes in those machines, other than what it costs to buy more product, is profit for the school. So don't step on anybody's toes. But if they're not selling Gatorade and water in their machines, you sell it after practice.
Right.
And, of course, the real one now, and I have to tell you that I wish that this had been around when I was actively being a band director, is the GoFundMe page. That can be a continuous fundraiser. And if I was in a position to set up a page like that for a band, every time we performed at a home game, as soon as we finished, it would be announced. Please go to the GoFundMe page for such and such and donate to the band. If we did a concert, on the back page of that concert, please go to the GoFundMe page and donate to the band. Mm-hmm. So once again, that's a fundraiser with no overhead, other than the little percentage that the GoFundMe will actually take from it anyway. But you're not having to buy any kind of product in order to bring money in. So those are some ideas from short-term, long-term, and continuous that we want to think about. Now, I got to stress this last part, the handling the money. Folks, you got to be careful in handling money. There's certain things that you need to do to protect yourself. Because embezzlement can really get you in trouble. And sometimes embezzlement is not that you meant to do it. But let's say that I collected $500 today for fundraising, and I left it in my desk, and someone stole it. Or I said someone stole it. Who's responsible for the $500? I am.
Right.
Okay? So we have to be careful how we handle money. So I'm going to give you a few tips on how to not let money accountability lead to your own demise. Number one, keep good record keeping. Every penny you take in and every penny you spend, you need to have documented somewhere. So if somebody ever asks you, where did such and such a money go? You have a log of where every penny went. Number two, issue receipts for all monies that you take in from individuals. Now, you don't have to have, unless it's required, you don't have to have that receipt book that the school gives you. Go out to Staples or Office Depot or Office Max and buy your own receipt book. And if somebody hands you money, even from a fundraiser, you give them a receipt for the money they handed in. It protects them because they have proof that they turned the money in. It protects you because you can document and show every penny that did come in. So if somebody says, well, I gave you $50 for such and such and such and such, it's not here in the receipt book. And if you are issuing receipts for every piece of money you take in, it protects you. Number three goes back to something I just said a minute ago. Don't keep money in your office. Don't do it. Schools are getting broken into all the time. Sometimes it's an inside job. I can go into that. I don't want to step on too many toes. But you got to be careful of leaving money in your office and you're not there with it. Well, once again, that goes back to what we talked about earlier on. Every chance you get, keep your hands off of it in the first place. But you want to see if your school has a drop box or something that at the end of the day, even if the financial office is closed, you have somewhere where you can make sure that money gets locked in the safe or locked in the administrative office and not in your own. So it gets out of your hands as soon as possible. Give or get continual finance reports from and to your band parents organization. Now, in running a band parents organization meetings, one of the things we always had was a financial report, where the treasurer of the band parents organization would tell how much money went out, how much money went in, what the balance was. So every month there was an accounting for what was going on. And if you have a band parents organization handling money, make sure if the account is not in the school, which is the best place to have it in the school most places, if they get an outside account, make sure they have to have 2 or 3 signatures on a check. So there's always more than one person that can vouch for what went in and went out. Keep your school principal and school financial secretary aware of all monies collected. Communication with your principal can save your job. If you've got a fundraiser going on and you're raising money, let your principal know how you're raising money, the monies are coming in, the monies are going here, we turned in this much money, this is how much profit we made on this. Let them know. Now, in most cases, that's a good thing. You have a few unscrupulous principals that want to take a piece of your money for themselves, but keep them informed. And the last thing on that is be transparent. Let your band know how you're doing. Let the band parents know how much money you're making, and let your administration know. And the more you remain transparent, the less opportunity you have for that to be turned back on you.
I was just going to say, being transparent is huge in so many things because it's right there. You know, there's no question. You know, there's not too much curiosity. You have right there in front of you what went out, what went in. So I definitely think that's important. But already, again, I think Rashad was tying in something there about just the importance of the band, just the importance of the parents. And that's what I've already started picking up already. It's just the parent feedback, the parent communication, the parent participation. So I see. So we see we're going into our last break. I'm going to mute our experts here, and we're going to go into our last commercial break. And then we open up the lines to you, the listener, 718-664-6025, to call and speak to Dr. Davenport, something that you said last week or last year or this week, whatever you would like. Go ahead and give us a call there when we come back from this commercial break. Again, you're listening to the 2015 Director Series podcast brought to you by the Marching Podcast, Blog Talk Radio, and BlockBandMusic.com. Thanks.
Need to write music and drill? Get it on the field. Outfit your band. Keep your administrator happy and still have a life. Encountering drama in the process, ain't nobody got time for that. Let Block Band Music assist you with musical arrangements and drills to fit your band, and also the equipment, gear, and accessories to keep the visuals, music, and marching on point. Contact blockbandmusic@gmail.com and see how this worldwide minority-owned business can uplift your band.
From photo shoots to graduation pictures, from probates to band footage, from pageants to yard shows, there's only one team you can count on, the Ed.D Productions. Visit theedge1.com and trust me, you won't be disappointed.
Chopping It Up is a podcast of one-on-one interviews with positive role models that have a connection through music and or education. Chopping It Up is all about inspiring our youth for a great future and providing a roadmap on how to get there. We also chop it up to give insight to anyone looking for information or hope in their endeavors. Chop it up with us on Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern at blogtalkradio.com/marchingpodcast. Chopping It Up, changing the world through positive interaction.
Hey, this is Kennedy, and you're listening to the Marching Podcast. Hi, this is Nashville. You need to do what you
Welcome back to our final segment here as we listen to South Carolina State. And what is it, the Bongo Brothers? Is that what the percussion section is called? I think that's what they are. But South Carolina State, good old South Carolina State, had a lot of news with them this calendar year. A lot of stuff going on in South Carolina State. But I thought about you guys. Shout out to South Carolina State. The state of South Carolina, just a lot of stuff going on there. But shout out to all my friends. Shout out to Lil Craig. Shout out to all the folks at South Carolina State. Johnson C. Smith took y'all down in 96. I'm just saying. Just want to throw that out there. 718-664-6025. You're listening to the Director Series Podcast 2015 with our resident expert here, Dr. Kevin O. Davenport, and the owner and founder of Block Band Music and Publishing, Rashard Waters. Unmute their microphones to bring them back on. I want all the listeners to know if you would like to be a sponsor or interested in becoming a sponsor or patron to the Marching Podcast, please contact the show and we'll give you the criteria so we can start to pub your business using our platform. We'll play your commercial, we'll show your icon during the broadcast, we'll post your website on our blog, and we'll help send out your information through social media. So contact us so we can help build your business. All right, we're at the last segment of the show, and again, you're welcome to call in if you would like to do so on the number you see there on your screen. One thing that I wanted to bring out for all the listeners was kind of the crux, if you will, of I think the two broadcasts last week. I really think it was making sure you plan, because it's not so much about you or the actual your appearance of being a great band director, but actually putting in the time, because it affects your parents. It affects the parents' time. It affects the child's time. And, you know, how much is going on in their lives. If they see so much and you have everything planned out, you'll be much more efficient. So taking time, because you actually can affect lives in the process. And then tonight, one thing is having that parent participation. Definitely making sure you have a good communication with the parents, having great communication in your community as well. You know, having just a good rapport all the way around, but just making sure that you know, you have those morals, if you will, in your back pocket. I think that's very, very important. Rashad, I wanted to push it to you here in our last in our feedback here block. And again, if you wanted to call in, please do so at the number you see there on your screen. I wanted to push it to you because I know you were interested in talking about the parent participation, especially when it comes to how we are in the black community as far as role models and having those higher authorities to be good leaders, if you will, for the youth.
All right, thank you, sir. So, Dr. Davenport, I did want to ask you about that. You know, in talking to a lot of band directors, that is one thing that I find. You know, is that again, some communities regardless of race. You know, hey, we get on board and we back the band no matter what. But then there's other communities where it seems like the band director is fighting a battle just to change the paradigm of the thinking of the parents in general. To say, you know, this is the type of, we're in those type of communities where you almost don't see the parents at all. You know, you have a band, you have, 40, 50 kids in your band, but you can only recognize the parents of, a relative handful versus the number of band kids in your band. How do you get those parents to understand the importance of being involved in what's happening with their young person, and also getting out there and really being a part of the fundraising effort?
Well, I think that, it goes back to one of the topics that we talked about last year. We talked about the band director as his own marketing agent. You've got to market your program. And yes, that's harder in some programs than some places than in others. But let me give you an example of what my marketing strategy was. And I actually used it starting teaching sixth grade students. Imagine you're a parent and you have a child that just started an instrument. And I came to you as the band director and said, little Rashad plays trombone, and he can be very good at it. And if he continues to work at it and stay in the band, we can make sure that he gets good enough on that instrument to help pay his way through college. Mm-hmm. Now, did you see what I just did? What you have to do with that parent is you have to connect, just like with the students, what's in it for me?
Okay.
Time is precious, but what's in it for me? If I can make sure or tell you that I'm going to work as hard as I can at getting your child into college and getting them some money to help you pay their way through college, you now have motivation to help me accomplish what I want to accomplish as a band director.
Okay.
Because in the long run, it's going to pay off for you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you understand what I'm saying? And you have to find out what angle works for that. But people want to know, why is it relevant for them to be involved? And you, as a band director, have to find a way to connect the relevance. Maybe in some places, hey, if your child's in band, they don't have a lot of time after school to get out and involved in games and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So they have somewhere to be. You know they're going to be in band practice. We're going to be traveling across the country. We're going to go see various colleges. I'm going to expose them to what college life is and motivate them to go to college and motivate them to get their grades up.
Mm-hmm. So what about – go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
What about just reaching those parents in general? Once again, you're running the band program, almost 24/7, and just getting in contact with those parents on a regular basis is a hard thing. I know that your mentee, Ms. Juliet Borkins at IC Norfolk, had talked about, doing some things where the only way your kid can go on a trip is that the parent actually has to physically come by,
Absolutely.
so they can meet you. Have you done things like that yourself?
Well, especially before trips.
Mm-hmm.
In order for your child to take this trip with the band, you must attend this band parent meeting, so
mm-hmm.
that you hear exactly what we're doing, where we're going to expect your child to respond to what's going on. You don't
mm-hmm.
come to the meetings, your child can't go on the trip.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to make some things mandatory for their children to participate. Now, the other thing I would do nowadays, once again, if I was starting my career now, I would be ultraly excited. Because one thing I see that is really good, a friend of mine here in Maryland just got his high school band program, and he's already put up a Facebook page about it. Now, in this day of social media, it's easy to get word out to what's going on really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
As a band director, instead of me being the one to do it, I would have somebody assigned to keep up with the media and the Facebook page and tweeting stuff out. I'd have somebody assigned to do that I could trust.
Mm-hmm.
But even if you organize 4 or 5 parents of the band parents organization, then you charge them to get in contact with other parents.
Mhm.
Then it's not on you as the band director. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
You've got more mouths to get the word out, to get the urgency out, and parent to parent, they can reach somebody and say, hey, you really need to come out and see what's going on here.
Mhm.
You know, they're doing some great things. You need to get involved. Now, you know, we've talked many times about that program down at IC North, where I had 200 kids in the program. There were 600 kids in the school. I never talked about how many active parents I had. I had over 200 parents active.
Wow. Wow.
I never went to a football game without 24 to 32 parents.
That's good stuff.
Now, this is a 100% black neighborhood.
Mhm.
These were parents that had jobs that kept them busy. But they made time because they realized how much that band program was affecting their children.
Mhm.
So they came out and got involved. Then they started to see the quality of the program. So they came out more. The funny story I tell all the time, we went to Mardi Gras parade, and if you've ever been to the Mardi Gras parade, they're ridiculously long. And one of them was 17 miles long.
Whoa.
And at one point in the parade, all of my bass drummers got exhausted and stopped playing and had to sit down for a minute, to the point where I had no bass drummers. And I had a band parent that strapped on the bass drum and had been around the band so much, they knew the percussion line. And they marched bass drum. But they were that much a part of the program.
Damn.
That's
crazy.
When I put my band in the stands, I never liked large crowds. When I set my band in the stands at a football game, there were parents totally framing the entire band for security reasons.
Okay.
But they had a uniform they had to wear, so if you looked at the band straight on, you couldn't tell. But you have to establish an organization and establish communication to get them involved. If you don't see a lot of them at the end of your band practice, you get outside that band room, and as cars pull up to pick up kids, you walk them through the car, you introduce yourself, you give them a few words about what's going on. We love to have you out here more. Invite them to come out and be a part.
Mhm.
Because you have to establish that kind of rapport with parents. This door is open. You can come in and see what we got going on. We want you to be a part of this.
Right.
So, and the more passionate are you, and people tell me you can still hear the passion in my voice about it, the more passionate you are about it, the more excited they will get.
Okay.
So we really have to take parent involvement as strongly as we take student involvement. I cannot tell you the number of times that a student wanted to quit to get a job, and their parents said, no, you stand right in that band. We just come this far. You got a chance to get a scholarship next year. You ain't getting out of the band. You stand right there.
Mhm.
I paid all that money for instruments. You stand right there. But see, that's the kind of support you need.
Say that's the truth, because I mean we all want to quit at some time, or either when we want to try something new, or I mean I'm sure we all want to quit, but sometimes we need someone saying, hey, you need to see this through, or you need to go ahead and get to the end of this first before you decide you want to do this. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And the more, and like I said, the more we get parents involved, your discipline problems drop.
Right.
Because if you got parents around, kids aren't going to cut up as much. Number one, because they don't want their parents, well, most of them, don't want their parents to see them cut up. But also, if my parents not there, well, my neighbor's child might be in the band too. And that parent might see me cut up, go back and tell my mama. So it cuts down on discipline problems. You know, and It's very, very important that we do everything we can to get parents involved in what's going on in music education, period, but in our band programs. How do you take a band out of town and not have parents with you? Do you know my parents used to have to sit up all night and take shifts on the hotel hallways? We did a bed check. There would be parents assigned to the hallways all night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
no kids snuck out of her room and went anywhere else. I didn't have to worry about that. I went to sleep because the parents covered shifts and made sure that no one came out of their rooms.
And you need that for a hotel trip, because that is like the bomb where you about to go out and spend the night somewhere. I remember, I think in high school, I think my band director even actually tried to have host families, because he didn't even want us to be in a hotel room where the parents would have to be on shift like that. Some ignorance is going to try to pop off, so having those host families. But, I mean, definitely, man, you take me back with that, too, because it was, it was funny. You had the same problem a little bit in college sometimes.
Oh.
You really got it.
That's a whole other animal. But I particularly remember in taking a trip, and we got caught up in our transportation and got to a hotel at 3:00 in the morning with 5 busloads of kids.
Wow!
And when I walked into that lobby, the man literally had fright on his face. And I sit there and told him, look, I guarantee you, if you let us go ahead and check in our rooms now, you'll never know we're here. And my band president was standing next to me and just kind of shook his head. Believe me, if he says that, it ain't going to happen. They let us come in. I went to my room and left the door open. And after about 40 minutes, I realized I wasn't there by myself. I was checking a band in the hotel. But it was silent because my parents were on the hallways, making sure the kids got into their rooms and weren't making any noise. Think about how the pressure comes off of me when I know I have parents that I can trust at that point to make sure that my discipline is maintained.
Mm-hmm.
We don't see it that way, but if you got parents to take care of issuing your uniforms and doing your fundraisers and serving as chaperones, it takes a lot of headache off the band director's head. And we have to realize that.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dr. D. Go ahead, Dr. D. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
That really helps us in our programs if we know we have that kind of support.
Mm-hmm.
We actually had a caller call in from the 314 area code, so I was like, we gotta make sure we holler at them from the 314. You know what I'm saying? That's the most important area code. Caller from the St. Louis area, calling, of course. Please give us your name, and if you want to say you're calling from St. Louis, please let the listeners know that as well.
Yes, this is young brother Terrell Stringer from the dirty St. Louis.
What's going on, man?
How everybody doing? Pretty good. I've been listening in since 7, so I'm just kind of trying to get my lessons and stuff together for the week. But everything has been great. Just listening in on the advice from Dr. Davenport. Everybody having their conversations going back and forth. I have a lot of questions, couple of comments, but I know specifically I wanted to give an acknowledgement to Dr. Davenport because it was one story that he said about a year ago about one time about how he gives assessments on field shows with his band students back in high school. And I kind of had that similar story this past weekend. We was working on the show about Wednesday or Thursday. We were still working on the show. And then on Friday, I called an all-day practice from about 11 in the morning to about 5 o'clock that evening because the students got school early. They got school early that day. So I made sure I fed them and stuff like that. But we was working over the show, and I kept giving them assessment. I was like, you guys, it's about a 70%. We need a 95%. And I think we ran it 3 more times, and they still didn't have it up to my expectations. but they asked, Mr. Stringer, can we run it one more time? And I was like, you know what, sure, go ahead and run it one more time. You know, it still wasn't quite there like they wanted, but then I got a text from one of my students later on that night saying, Mr. Stringer, you know, call time is at 11:30. Can we come in an hour early before the game so we can run the show one more time?
Wow.
I was like, sure, I'll be at the school, you know. So right there, it kind of gave me a little bit of motivation, encouragement, because this has been a rough start of the season already. And I remember I talked to Mr. Waters probably about a couple of weeks ago. He's like, man, I guess he sounded like he kind of heard it in my voice, like, man, don't sound too defeated yet, man. You know, things just getting started. Because I was already kind of like, man, am I still really supposed to be here? But, you know, everything is kind of coming along. And these type of blogs and these type of conversations still keeps me motivated, you know, that I'm here for a purpose.
Well, Terrell, let me tell you, what you saw that student do should tell you you've got growth happening in your program. When they're conscientious enough to want to practice more to get it right, that's a sign of success. And you have to become motivated when you see those kinds of success. And you grasp every little sign of success that you can, and you encourage it, and you continue to bring it forward. But don't give up on it. That's a sign that your program is going in the right direction.
Yeah, you know, we recorded the show, so tomorrow we're gonna review it at practice tomorrow, so they can just see where they made their mistakes at, and said what they did really well and things of that sort, so we can move on. You know, and constantly grow. But one question that I think, in terms of fundraising, you spoke of like long term and short term, but I had some type of idea for a long term fundraiser that can kind of benefit for a trip, and it was kind of using like a barbershop, because around time of homecoming, kids want to look fresh and clean cut for their haircuts.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to do like a type of raffle at the homecoming, saying, okay, develop a sponsorship with a barbershop, saying, okay, the first 5 kids that win the raffle, you get a haircut by Groove Theory, which is the name of the barbershop. And and then we was going to try to get them to sponsor us for about maybe 100 T-shirts as a fundraiser as well. We'll put their logo on the back of the T-shirt.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Absolutely.
We're just trying to find a way to not only put it on paper, but I don't know how to like really completely structure it to set it up. I'm still trying to work on that. But I talked with the barbershop. He said he's most definitely interested. Just try to get everything all set up or whatnot.
Well, Terrell, give me a text later on so we can set up a time where I don't continually miss your call. So that we can kind of structure that thing. I'd be glad to help you. Terrell's one of the people that bought my books and has years worth of consulting. So we can talk about structuring that to make sure you can get the most effective income out of that idea. But that sounds like a real original idea.
That's pretty dope, man, that you bringing that up about haircuts. I mean, another thing, too, I think what's important is that the community sees you guys working together. Like the barbershop will be able to be like, hey, we supporting this band. And then the more you school them, Terrell, about HBCU bands and, that style, maybe they get more interested. They start throwing more money in, or the actual word starts to spread. So then maybe, the CVS across the street or who else, like they all get involved because they see the benefit of your relationship.
Yeah, and then I was also trying to find a way to market, just a sense of just bandsmanship in St. Louis in general. Just trying to find a way to just make it the norm to where it'll be a demand for the band directors to take band more seriously with their students, to get them more active, whether have a battle of the bands or play around as a fundraiser. But then, it kind of shows community within the different districts. But just trying to get the band directors to buy into it, that's the hard thing, because some of them are not willing to put in that extra time for their marching band programs.
Here's an idea. Find out if there are any colleges passing through your area. They may be going to some other state, some other city, but are going to pass through your area. and offer your facilities for them to practice, and then open that practice up to all the high schools in the area to come out and watch this college band practice.
Mm-hmm.
And that gives them some exposure to something bigger than what's going on right there in St. Louis, and can serve as motivation for the community, because they can see, to what level band can go to.
Mm-hmm.
So that might be something to look into, see if any college band is passing through your area sometime, and just invite them, tell them what you're trying to do, and invite them to come out and, do a rehearsal at your school or at some school right there in your area.
Yeah.
That would be smart, man. That would be actually really smart. I just thought about it, like if there was a band, since Terrell's from my home, or he's in my hometown, if there was a band somewhat close that did something, I'm sure that would help us out. All the folks back home in St. Louis, Harris Stowe State College ain't got no band. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
for all the folks,
Well, I can't forget about my alma mater, Lincoln University in Jeff City. However, we're not in a black conference, so we get to play a lot of HBCU bands. Not that many at all. And I think this season, I know we're playing Langston, but it's going to be in Langston, so they're not going to be passing through St. Louis. So that idea would have definitely worked, only if they was going to be passing through our area. And I actually did that before my first year teaching. Lincoln, they participated in the Gateway Classic, which was always held in St. Louis, but it's not held anymore. And they did that same thing. They used our practice field to practice their show, and we pretty much invited the whole school. We shut down the whole school the last period, and then watched the band do the drill. They did a sideline show, and the crowd went crazy. It really did help. A lot of students were interested in band, but however, something more consistent that they can see to get them more involved in it.
Okay. Well, we need to knock around some other ideas. With YouTube and that kind of thing out there, you can find a place to have it running different college bands, so they can see what. A big part of that is just exposing them to what's out there beyond where they are. We'll start to help change the community.
Yeah, and that one fundraiser you said hit home too. I think you said nickel and diamond. Some of the things to avoid, like the candy fundraisers, because we've done that before. But it does take a lot of time to raise a lot of money over time. It could be something for something small, like you said, Reeds or something, but something big. It takes forever to get to that goal, and it can be pretty draining. But however, our school does have that policy now, to where we cannot sell any candy and chips at the school during school. So it's crazy how you brought that up.
Well, a lot of it comes from the national rules on what can be sold at lunchtime. But in a lot of districts, they have to shut down the snacks machines during the lunch periods because of nutrition. So that causes a lot of rules to happen. But I would definitely look at doing the Gatorade and the water after rehearsal just for your own kids, and then you might start getting some athletes coming over wanting to buy something after their practices too.
That's cool. Well, I appreciate the call, Terrell, man. I'm gonna go ahead. I know you was listening, so I can just put you back on mute. Just because I know you probably listening through your phone. So
yes, sir.
So that's what's up, man. Well, I sure appreciate it. Always good to hear somebody from Berkeley. And I just started thinking, man, maybe you could go to like the local Snooks or something, and y'all bust a little something for the little grocery store. You know what I'm saying?
It is right down the street from it. It's right there down the street.
Yeah, what I'm talking about. I know the area, dog. That's dope, man. That's cool.
Hopefully they throw us some hot braised chicken on the side.
I know,
I just want to point out real quick that Terrell teaches at McClure South Berkeley, which is actually in Ferguson, Missouri. And so I just want to point out the fact that there are some positive things happening in Ferguson. There is some negative publicity there, but there's some positive things happening there, and Terrell is a big portion of that. So shout out to you.
That's right. Terrell is the actual band director there. there in that area, in the heart of the area of all the things that we saw on the news. So, this is, very important for him to do his thing there as he makes a good impression for our young people. So shout out to you, Terrell. We appreciate it, man.
No problem.
All right. Again, if you guys want to call in, 718-664-6025. We have a couple minutes left. I wanted to push it to you, Rashad, because I know that you had some things on your mind or just more just to bounce things off of. But definitely in this podcast, we talked about that parental representation, feedback, if you will. You do somewhat similar, the same with Block Band. As far as, do you reach out to parents as far as, when you do the same things with Block Band, you try to, I guess, when you write songs, do you ever reach out to parents in the same matter?
Not really. No, everything that we do with Block Band is pretty much centered around the band directors themselves. Now, I did have another company that started for a moment, and I had a company called Yeah Baby Sports, which preceded Block Band a little bit, and we dealt with nutrition things, and we really was just starting to get into the idea of promoting the nutritional products to bands when Block Band started, and so I really kind of went all in with Block Band. But at that token, that was something that I would, talk to the band parent organization about as well.
I was just thinking
that a lot of times they would be the ones to be, paying for that type of stuff.
Right, because I guess that's what I was leading to. Has you ever thought about, I guess, this Block Band? I know you work with maybe the schools or the directors, but you have a band parents organization that you work with, or maybe reaching out and finding those band parents organizations and having that relationship. Because then, if you have it with the band parents organization, they may take a lot care of the things that the director doesn't even have to deal with.
Right. Normally, the director will lead me towards the band parent. If it's a thing kind of like what Dr. Davenport is talking about, where they don't touch the money at all. Maybe a thing where they have me to connect with that person in order to get the things the band needs. But now, Davenport, I did want to ask you this: when I was in band, we did a lot of fundraising, and we sold gift wrapping paper and all kinds of things like that of a catalog. But we never sold fruit. And so I really don't have any experience with that. And I've heard a lot about fruit. A lot of bands swear by fruit. I just never knew anything about it. I sold it as a band director myself very tentatively. But honestly, I don't know if I speak for anybody else about this. I don't understand why fruit is such a big fundraiser. Why is it such a big deal? And why do people buy it? Why do people do it at Thanksgiving?
Well, one thing in a lot of families is traditional to have fresh fruit in the house around Thanksgiving and Christmas. Mm-hmm. So people are going to buy fruit anyway, oranges and apples, particularly during Thanksgiving and Christmas. So what you're doing is just aligning yourself with something that people are going to buy anyway. And that's why it's such a big thing. If they can help the band and the community and buy fruit, buy what they need anyway, they're going to do it. And that's part of finding a good fundraiser, is where you're supplying a need that needs to be met anyway, and at the same time making money for your program. Mm-hmm. And that's a big thing with fundraising. You've got to think about what does the community need, what are they going to buy anyway, and how can I get them to buy it from us?
Right,
That's really it. Okay. So, and it takes marketing. It takes putting it out there, getting it out there in the community. Using your free radio station in the area, using social media. When you get ready to do a fundraiser, publicize, so people know that it's going on. And when you start to do it on a regular basis, they start looking for you instead of for you having to look to them. And that's where you want to get your fundraisers to.
Okay.
Yeah, I definitely think that's really important. One thing I do want to read from your book, Dr. Davenport, like I did last week. The first 4 last year, I didn't have the book. Then I bought the book after the series, so I've checked it out. So, I keep the theme going. Last week I read something. I did want to read something from Chapter 6, exclusively I'm sorry, specifically from the forming a band parents organization, and it's something I guess we don't necessarily have to bring up, but it's something that's maybe understood, and it's the important that you understand that the main idea in all of these is support and not control, and you have support and control there in bold. And I think what's important for the listeners to understand that this parental band organization is created to support the band and not control the band. And I think that, again, it comes to the planning of the director, if you will, for setting up those goals and setting up the specific targets that the band parent organization is supposed to hit. Like that was one question I had, for Rashad just now. Is like, are you working with band parent organizations? But maybe the director hasn't had that in his planning. Maybe the director specifically plans out what the organization does. So I wanted to throw that out there for the listeners that, it was about support and not control.
And let me say this real quickly. The more you give that band parents organization objectives to go after to support the band, the less the idea comes up for them to control. So you want to keep them busy and keep them focused and aimed at something so they don't have time to think about trying to control what you're doing, because they have their own responsibility to go after.
That's outstanding. Well, we got about 30 seconds left. I'll give it. I will sign off here. Thank you to Dr. Davenport. Thank you to Rashad. You guys will check out our blog. We'll give more information. Contact the show. Email us if you will, if you need any more information. This is the 2015 Director Series Part 2. Thanks for listening. We will give you more information in the future. Again, check out our blog for any other updates or repeats for this show. Thanks to Rashad. Thanks to Rashad, and thanks to Kevin O. Davenport with the 2015 Director Series podcast. Thanks again for listening.